I've created my test. I know how to create assessment items and all of those things. And now I'm ready to schedule this assessment. So I've done all of the precursor to either made a manual test or made an express test. And so how do I know I'm going to be successful and I am ready to schedule? Well, the first thing is if I'm ready to schedule, you'll see that this icon here is a dark, rich blue. If it's a light blue, we're not ready to schedule. It's not going to let us schedule a test. So if we have any warnings, certain warnings we will still be able to schedule, and others we will not. So I'm going to try and give you an example of what that looks like. So I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to go to edit because that's the quickest way for me to get to the test detail that I want to show you. And you'll notice here I have all these green checks. That's fantastic. That means everything's green. We're ready to go. We're going to be successful scheduling our test. Let's just say, though, that I'm going to delete this one, okay? And I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to return to the test detail. It's going to take me back out. And notice it says, warning, there's an item that contains an error that has to be resolved before we continue. And you notice it's not as a rich blue here. Okay, I've got to go back and put that standard in. All questions must be tied to a standard. So I'm going to go back to this one, and it said, so you see that, notice this warning icon here. It says align to a standard. You've got to align this to a standard. And so I'm going to go back in and I'm going to edit it. And I don't remember which standard it is. We're just going to throw one on there. And let's see what we can do. CCSS. And I'm just going to pick one. Doesn't matter, just to make sure that there's a standard there. And once it's aligned to a standard, then actually I can toggle through the remaining test items that are up here and make sure there's nothing else. And if I've done it correctly, there should be a green check for number 1 once I get off of number 1, and it is. So notice here it says steps to complete. There's nothing left to complete, and we are ready to schedule. Other things that can hang up your scheduling your tests is if you don't have any answers that are worth points, or that you haven't selected a correct response. So those are things that it will say, hey, there's no correct response selected. It'll try to make this almost foolproof. All right, so now that we've done this, we're ready to schedule our test. We're going to go back to the test detail. And this is where we schedule our test. So we click ready to schedule. And if you're doing this as a common assessment and you're using the school assessment, I think for you it may say ready to schedule and then it might say make public or something like that. So you're taking it from my private to making it public so I can share with others, and then once you're ready to schedule it, then you would schedule that test. Okay? Same process, buttons in the same place, maybe different words, but clicking that blue button is going to take you to the next step, and that's what you want. So again, it's like I want to schedule it. I was ready to schedule, now I want to schedule it. So now I'm going to click to schedule my test. Before we actually schedule it, one of the things to note is that there are actions that disappear, that we no longer have the ability to do certain things once we have said that we're ready to schedule a test. Notice that before, when we wanted to customize a test, when we had that error on the last assignment, that we wanted to delete multiple items, you don't have that option anymore on customized tests. And what happens is when you say I'm ready to schedule it, you have now put this in cement. You can't change it really anymore. There are some minor changes that you can make, but it doesn't like it when you change it because it says, hey, wait a second, you said you were ready to schedule. You said you were ready to copy this and put it out. And so when you say ready to schedule, it's like putting it on the copier. It is ready to go in the hands of students. So we're going to click schedule. Or we click schedule, it's gone to the next screen. We have to decide when we're scheduling the test for. So if we were going to say the start date was August 25th, we would simply go to August and we'd say that our test begins on the 25th. It's going to default for a week. You might want it to end even later, so you can go in and adjust that date should you want to. And then your score date has to be at least where your end date is. So I'm going to put it for the end September 9th. Again, it just is when you're saying all the scores should be in for that test. However, that date really will not affect your test administration. So here's one of the things that says prevent the students from accessing the test results until after the end date. So that means that whatever your end date is, if you don't want kids to see what the results are until after that date, then you might want to click that button. If it doesn't matter to you and you want them to have immediate feedback, then you can leave that unchecked. Every test will get an online test code, even if you're not going to do it online. Every test that's scheduled in SchoolNet receives an online test code, so you can always go back even after you've done. Some students have taken it paper pencil, maybe some did it using the Smart Response, but you have a group of kids that need to take the makeup and you want them to do it online. They can always use that online passcode for as long as that test exists in SchoolNet. There are a number of options that you have, whether you're going to time your test, which we briefly talked about earlier. You can turn the timer off for some questions, but you can time your entire test. You can say, I only want that test to be available for a certain time of the day. So maybe your class that's going to get this test is from 8 to 9:30. Then you might say you only want it available from 7:55 to 9:35 on that particular day. You can prevent the student from accessing the test before, but they have to have that passcode. So if you don't give out the passcode, they're not going to be able to get in there anyway. And you can also prevent them from accessing the test after the end date. You can scramble your questions, and the thing to remember, this is going to, if you have anything grouped together, it's going to override that. So you make sure that you think of that in terms of when you scramble your question order. You're also going to have the ability to scramble your answer choices, and that's going to apply to your multiple choice inline response. So if you want one of your options to be all of the above, if you scramble, that may not necessarily be a good idea. So just think about those things as you're making those decisions. You can allow students to pause the test if they're going to the restroom, or you can say that that's not allowed. And only your assigned students can take the test, or anybody with the passcode. And again, typically, if you don't want a student to take the test, you're not going to give them the passcode, and students don't typically take tests that they don't want. They don't have to. All right, so mine looks a little different down here, so we're going to just go past that and go to the assignment. You're going to probably accept your quick assignment, which means it's going to assign to all of the classes that you teach. And I'm just going to accept the quick assignment here. You can edit that and say I want it to go to specific courses and even specific students. Okay, so once that's saved, it's going to take you back to the test detail. And in that case, the test is live and ready to go. There's nothing else that you need to do. You can print out answer sheets if you're going to use those, and that would be here. You can delete the test as long as there's no data tied to the test. So if you haven't given it out and you say, you know what, I don't like this test, I'm going to delete it. Or you can copy it and then make changes to it because you've already gotten this far in, you've photocopied it. You can copy the test and then begin to edit it. Especially if you want several versions of the test, that might be something that you would do. So you don't have to recreate the whole thing and just give it a name, maybe test 470 version B. You can select an answer key if you're going to be doing it by hand. You can print out the student test booklet. It will be a PDF. And you can also print out your cover sheet. And that concludes our session on how to schedule a test.